Ecocide is essentially environmental genocide, but actually it goes further than that. The word itself has been around for over 40 years. What I'm doing is I'm giving legal definition to it, and it's about actually protecting the Earth's right to life. So I've defined ecocide as an international crime where extensive damage, destruction to or loss of ecosystems has occurred. And it's not just damage and destruction that's happened to land, but also when we see loss of ecosystems, that can be how human beings, how people are actually torn asunder from their own habitat. And that's a form of cultural ecocide, if you like. So it's not just ecological ecocide I'm looking at. I'm actually looking at how communities can have their own internal collapse as a result of either human-caused activity, largely corporate ecocides, or mass damage and destruction that's arisen out of something like, for instance, the Athabasca tar sands, that can have huge adverse impact in local communities, and not just human beings, but all beings, all species that live there. But also naturally occurring ecocide. Say we have a tsunami, floods, rising sea levels. That can cause both ecological as well as cultural ecocide. And by creating a law of ecocide, what I'm doing is I'm imposing a legal duty of care. It's known as a duty of care, a legal duty of care upon not just heads of corporations, but on heads of state, on ministers. And that is really important, because at the moment we aren't even having the conversation as to how we come together collectively and unite as nations to provide assistance when we have mass ecosystem collapse. Well, this is an idea whose time has definitely come. It's certainly taking me all over the world. My carbon footprint's gone out the window, but there is purpose here. And so I think for the moment it's obviously necessary that I get out there and speak about this. And I have a team of, I think it's 13 people working with me now. 10 of them will be full-time by the end of this week. And we have a larger international team of people that engage on this in many, many different countries throughout the world. My role is really to get out there and message this, speak about it, engage governments over it. And my team are very much engaging in campaigning, engaging people. This needs to be a top-down as well as a bottom-up approach to this. It's not just a solution that needs to be driven from leadership at the top, but it also needs the voice of the people speaking on behalf of the earth, saying, we want this law to be put in place. So I have become a campaigning lawyer in effect. But it's not just me, it's my team. And I mean that in the widest sense. Anyone who's engaging in this, I see as part of the team that's helping take this out further and engage many others on why we need a law of ecocide put in place. The response to the mock trial was amazing. It went absolutely international immediately, in part because Sky News live streamed it right across the world to thousands and thousands of people on the day. We had international press coverage from the Financial Times to Time magazine, actually, to Deutsche Welle, to publications in Brazil, all over the world. And it really took it into another sphere. It took it into the world of business, and that was very important. We wanted to engage business on this and say, look, this is a very serious proposal. But also it's a proposal where we're looking at the problem and making the problem into the solution. Believe it or not, I'm not actually wanting to hang out a whole load of CEOs to dry in court. What I am looking to do is provide them with the legislative framework so that instead of profiteering out of mass damage and destruction, it gives them the way forward to invest and move into innovation in a very different direction. Believe it or not, it's very difficult for companies just now to do that because the laws just aren't there to help them. And this is a law that will do that. Actually, I think our biggest challenge is how to engage people around this. In a world where we're hit by constant stream of media and a barrage of kind of noise coming from papers, radio, television, we're constantly challenged as to what we focus on, what we decide is important in our lives. And sometimes that leads to a certain sense of overwhelmment. I'm very keen to encourage people to stand up and give voice on behalf of the earth, and to, by doing that, encourage others to do that as well. That is in part by showing how that it can be done, and also in part by actively putting an ask out there, and we're doing that in our campaigning, asking people to stand up and speak out, or engage in these matters and take it out to others in whatever way is possible. Well, the wider implications for a law of ecocide are that it will create a seismic shift in consciousness. In fact, it already is. Just by engaging in the debate around this expands your vision of what can be done. It's also about engaging people in a narrative and a dialogue about what is individual as well as collective leadership, a bold, moral, courageous leadership, where we are standing up and saying, okay, here's an opportunity for us to close the door to mass damage and destruction, and to open the door for something, instead of being life-destroying, being life-affirming, and making that the new norm. So it's about shifting norms. At the moment, it's the exception, but this is a law that will really shift those norms and make it the new norm, that we invest in business that is benign and certainly not destructive, and that, if anything, is life-affirming. It also shifts our engagement in business, rather than it being the here and now. What do we profit from, annual returns, quarterly returns? We even have day traders looking to future generations and saying, is this going to benefit the future? Is this something that actually, and not just humans, but all beings? So we start shifting and expanding our terms of engagement and our vision for a new world that's premised on life itself, rather than ultimately death and destruction. Well, in fact, it's evolved out of it's something that I started off with earlier. Another very big idea was, my starting point was, what if we had a universal declaration of planetary rights or earth rights? And that was something that 4 or 5 years ago really got me thinking. Here we have a universal declaration of human rights, and ultimately the most important rights that we have as humans is our right to life. It doesn't matter about any other rights. If we're not alive, then none of those rights mean anything. So our right to life is the most important one. And how is it that we govern that, and how do we protect it? In fact, we protect our human right to life in a one-to-one by the crime of murder, or in America it's called homicide. If it's you and your community, then it's the crime of genocide. And so that gave birth to a very big idea of a universal declaration that sat akin to human rights that we do for nature, essentially, nature's rights or earth rights. That was a proposal that I was invited in to speak about at a big United Nations conference. And in fact, I remember brainstorming about that at Embercombe. I was there a few months before I was to speak at that conference. That was a very important time that I spent discussing that in Embercombe. Now that was an idea that actually travelled very far, very fast, because it was only 10 months after I publicly spoke about that Bolivia got in touch and said they were very interested in it. And they then took on board the initial drafting of that with a lawyer that I'd asked to come forward and help with the drafting, and they then worked with that lawyer to take it to the next stage. And it was proposed into the United Nations that we have a Universal Declaration of the Rights of Mother Earth. In fact, Bolivia has now put in place its own law of Mother Earth. So it actually grew out of that, and the recognition that, in fact, if we really are going to protect the Earth's right to life, then just as we have genocide in place, in fact, we need the crime of ecocide. So ecocide, the crime of ecocide is the kind of the other side of the coin for protecting the Earth's right to life. The two go hand in hand. In essence, what we're looking at here is the emergence of a whole new body of law, Earth law, that's taking shape, and I can see that far more is going to be coming through over the next few years as well, which is very exciting. Oh, well, please do support it. The website is eradicatingecocide.com. There's a fantastic page there of what you can do in 1 minute or less, what you can do in 10 minutes or less, or what you can do with more time. We are very much engaging on the gift economy, and we value equally people gifting their time, their energy, as well as their money to this campaign. It needs all of that, and any way you can help, even by just spending 1 minute in taking this message further into your networks, can be actually a very powerful, very effective way of moving this agenda along. So please do come and join us and sign up and engage in how to spread this message that we can, in fact, in our lifetimes, end the era of ecocide.